Howdy! Welcome to our presentation on Transfer Applications 101. My name is Natalia Cashin. I'm one of the advisors here at Texas A&M School of Law, and we also have Jeff Green, who's our Assistant Director of Admissions. We are both going to be reviewing transfer applications and assisting students with transfer applications. And so at the end of this presentation, we'll have some information about how to reach us if you'd like to talk to us one-on-one. But we believe that a lot of the information that you would be looking for can be found in the presentation today.
Yeah, so let's start with why do students transfer? In my career, I've actually worked as a transfer counselor for an undergraduate institution and have helped hundreds of students transfer. But transferring an undergrad, and you might have transferred an undergrad, is a lot more of like what I experience of students just kind of like bouncing around to kind of find the perfect fit, and that shouldn't and really can't happen with law school transfers. And so transfer students for law school that transfer successfully typically are transferring for kind of what I categorize as three reasons. Either it's just a personal reason, and sometimes that might also have to do with the second one being location, but there might be a personal or family need to make a change. You might just be looking for a location change. A lot of times that might have to do with where you want to end up, which is kind of the last category of just professional reasons, looking for some different opportunities, either in a different area of law or a different geographic area. But the real key is that you know why you want to transfer and that you really think through that in detail and clearly so that this is successful for you, because really the transfer process for law school is to transfer after typically the completion of your 1L year. We'll talk a little bit about transfer credits, but after you get past that first year, the transferability of credits is going to be really limited. And so this is kind of a window that opens up during and after your 1L year, and you can review those options and make that decision. But we really advise students to make sure you know why you're transferring and making sure that the decision to transfer is going to actually fulfill those needs for you.
So the transfer application process is pretty similar to what you experienced when you were applying to your law school of choice in that first year, except there are a couple of nuances, and the nuances are very important. And so we would encourage you all to spend some time on our website. We have listed out in our transfer application page all of the things that you're going to need to submit, where you submit them, but we're going to walk through some of those documents right now. So you're going to be using LSAC like you did before, and you're going to fill out a new application that comes out. It's a transfer application. And within that application, you're going to fill out similar information that you did the first time around. And you're going to also have a personal statement and a resume and an opportunity for addendums. It is important that all of these things are new. Because what we're looking for in your personal statement is not why you decided to go to law school in the first place, but why you're wanting to transfer and why you're wanting to transfer specifically to Texas A&M. So make sure that you take those 2 pages in your personal statement to give us a sense of why you want to come to our school, why you think that transferring at this point in your law school career is a good idea, and what you're hoping to achieve once you're here, so that we can get a really good sense of why you're choosing us. As Jeff mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the transfer process is more complicated, and we have a lot of things that we have to review and assess to make sure that you're going to be a good fit. And so the more specific you can be in your personal statement, the better. The second thing that you're going to have on there is going to be that resume. A lot of students submit the same resume they submitted with their law school application, but you're really doing yourself a disservice if you do that, because your resume should now be updated to include your first year of law school. And a lot of times that includes organizations that you've joined and things that you've done in that first year of law school. And that's great for us to see that you were involved at your school that you're currently at. And it gives us a sense to see where you might be headed when you get to our law school. The last section, the addendum section, is important because depending on the year and the current situation and what might be happening for you, this is a good place to add anything else that we might need to know about what your first year of law school looked like, if you were online, what type of instruction you had. So this is a place where any of those extra, added elements of your law school experience can be explained, and something that we will take into consideration when we're reviewing your file. Now, when you submit this, it's also going to include, it can include some of your old documents from your first time that you applied. We are going to want to see in that CAS report your writing sample from your LSAT, the transcripts that you submitted the first time around of your undergraduate institution and any other master's programs. But you're also going to have to submit your transcript from law school. This is a little complicated for students because most of you will be applying when you only have your fall semester grades, but you are going to have to submit an updated transcript once grades come in over the summer. But know that you don't have to wait for that to apply. So when the application period opens, you can submit everything that you have available to you up until this point. And then as grades and class rank and other things come into play, you can submit that as the application process is moving forward. The last part is that we're going to need those letters of recommendation for your CAS, the ones that you utilized when you applied to law school the first time around. But you're also going to need one letter of recommendation from a current faculty member from your law school. We want to see, what a faculty member thought about your work product, your class participation, etc. In the rare occasion that you cannot find a faculty member that can write you a letter of recommendation, you can utilize somebody else from law school. So if you have built a relationship with an advisor there or a dean of any other department, academic support or academic affairs or student affairs, you can utilize them so that they can give us a sense of your character and competencies that you're going to be able to transfer over to the law school. When we talk about timing in a couple of slides, it'll be important to be thinking about these things in your timing so that you know when you're going to ask your faculty members or your recommender for these letters of recommendation so that it doesn't hold up your application. The last two documents that are very unique to the application process that you would not have done in your prior application process is the letter of good standing. This is a letter generally from your academic affairs office that lets us know that you are in good standing, that there aren't any conduct violations on your record, any academic issues, and also can include your class rank. So some schools will send a letter of good standing, and then we'll send a letter that notifies us of your GPA and your class rank. And some schools do that, do both of those things in one letter. It doesn't matter to us. We're just going to need those two components: your standing, your current standing with your school, and then your class rank. Those need to be submitted either directly to LSAC by your school, or they can be submitted by your registrar's office or your academic affairs office directly to our law-admissions@law.tamu.edu email. The only part of your application that can be sent from you, the student, directly to us, the admissions office, via email is going to be the syllabi. We're going to need to see every syllabus that you had for each class in the fall and spring semester so that our committee can look at those syllabi and can make an assessment about what transfer credit we're going to be able to provide and what you might be lacking. And so when you're thinking about preparing for your application, this is something that you can be doing from the very beginning and can be sending that over to us. And we can start gathering that together to submit to our academic affairs office. It's going to do that final transfer credit assessment. So while my tip would be, while a lot of it is very similar to your first year application process, there are those nuances. Make sure you pay attention to that. It's very clearly listed out on our website, and get those things submitted to the right person, either LSAC or us, and in a timely fashion.
So let's talk a little bit about the timing and when all this happens. When to prepare, while you'll see that, a lot of law school transfer applications like ours won't open up till later, it's definitely a shorter window than what you were used to when you applied to law school. You can start preparing some of those documents that Natalia was mentioning in your first semester of law school. You can start collecting those syllabi so you're not having to try to find them or try to email professors after the fact while you're in those classes. You can also start, really looking at the few schools you might be interested in transferring, and maybe keeping a list and keeping notes on what are the specific documents, what are the unique parts of that process that each school requires, because it is a little bit more detail oriented, because you're not just being reviewed by a committee for admissibility, you're being reviewed by a committee for credit, right? And so making sure you're keeping notes on what the different schools require early on, and kind of having a system of how to keep organized and how to keep track of all that, I think can be really helpful for students, so that they're not waiting till the next timeline, which I'm going to talk about when to apply. You're not waiting for that that timeline to start to do all of these documents all at once, because that can definitely be stressful, and it is a shortened window. And so at A&M, we only accept transfers and enroll transfers for the fall semester. That has to do with the fact that we only start 1Ls in the fall semester. So some schools do this a little differently, so make sure you're paying attention to that at the different schools you're looking at. But for us, our application, it can shift a little bit year to year, but it's typically going to open up late spring, early summer, typically in the May time frame. Most of that's because we are wanting to look at your full first year finished at your law school, so that we can get an assessment of your credits and how successful you were in those classes. And so the application season is going to be much shorter than what you experienced most likely when you applied as a 1L. And so you're typically going to apply in the spring or early summer, and we'll get the decisions here in a second. But the decisions are also a much shorter timeline. But you don't just need to apply and then sit there. You definitely need to make sure you connect with your law schools. So whether or not they have specific sessions or opportunities for transfer students to connect, you need to reach out. If there's general information sessions, attend those. Yes, you're going to have different questions because you're a transfer student, but it is important that you connect with the schools and make sure they know that you are interested. One of the reasons we are putting this video out is because of the growth and level of interest that we've received, both myself and Natalia, and how we're regularly meeting with students, and we wanted to get some of this information out in your hands more accessible. And so make sure you're connecting with offices, if that's emailing them or calling their office or looking for those events, whether it's general or specific to transfers. It's important for you to connect with some of the counselors, some of the advisors in the admissions offices, to make sure you have your questions answered, but also to make sure they know who you are and know what your interest is in their school.
A final thing to be thinking about, not just with your timing of your applications, it's also going to be the timing specific to your law school experience. So we require that you have substantially completed your first year of law school to be able to apply to transfer. So if you're a part-time student or if you're a spring starter, that can make things a little bit more complicated as to when you're going to be applying and what that looks like. We also will only transfer 30 credit hours. And so that is, I think, one of the main reasons that we push students to really connect with us one-on-one, less so to talk about, what application documents are necessary or required. We have this video for you. It's listed on our website, but to really go over these situations based on what classes you've taken, how many credit hours you have, and what that looks like for when you transfer. So I think, every student's concern is decisions and when do those happen. The transfer process is unique in that we don't have, a cycle of we receive a bunch of applications, we review them, then we make decisions. It really truly is a rolling basis of case-by-case applications and case-by-case decisions because of all of those things that I just mentioned. Each applicant is going to come with a different set of classes they've taken, course credit that they're looking for, and reasons for transferring. And so our admissions committee really needs to look at each of those applicants individually. And so as soon as you submit your documents and you connect with us, we're going to start building that rapport and that relationship of communication, because We need to know, when is that class rank going to come out? When are your spring grades going to come out? Um, and so don't be hesitant to keep in touch with us via email about all of those things so that we can complete your application and then review it. For us, our review process does include that credit assessment. And so having those syllabi that I mentioned is going to be important because the committee doesn't just decide, whether you're admissible, but like Jeff said, we have to decide, can those credits transfer? And is that going to be the best thing for you to do? And then a lot of times we might reach out and have a conversation with you about what that looks like before we decide and send out a decision. And so just be, you need to be the steward of your own application, ensuring that all the documents are getting to us so that then when we're ready to make that decision, we can work quickly with you. So in terms of timelines, the answer is really, it depends. You are all probably that are listening to this first year students, so you should know that it depends is really an answer. And so the timeline, I will say, is in your hands in a lot of ways, because it means if you're organized, if you submit your documents on time, if you stay on top of your registrar's office or your academic affairs office to ensure that they submit, grades as soon as they get them and good standing and rank as soon as they get them, then it makes it a lot easier for us to try to turn those decisions around quickly. We would like to do that for you as well, because there are so many things once you are admitted that need to occur for you to move and do all of those things, but also for things like on-campus interviews and for write-on competitions for our journals, for job fairs. There are a lot of things that happen in that summer between your first and second year. And part of the reason that I think it's so hard to make that transfer decision, like Jeff said at the very beginning of the presentation, is because of, what you might lose out on in that shift between schools in terms of opportunities going into that second year. And so for us, once you have been admitted, you will be, asked to submit your enrollment commitment form and your deposit. And that will open up a lot of opportunities for you to participate in on-campus interviews if you meet certain GPA and class rank requirements. Same for write-on competitions for our two journals, Law Review and Property Journal. And then to be able to connect with other transfer students to create, camaraderie and support for what you're going to be able to go into next.
Yeah, I want to add one more thing here, Natalia, even though we didn't write it in. I feel like a lot of transfer students have a lot of questions about, like, they experienced how hard it was to get that admission letter, those admission offers for where they're at right now. And they have a lot of questions around, I'm considering transferring, but like, do I even have a shot? Is it going to be just as hard? And we don't have a great answer for that. It is still competitive. But the one thing that I typically tell students is it is a little easier on the committee side to review you for potential success, because we can see how you did in law school, right? When we're reviewing these potential 1L applications, we're really trying to gather a lot of things together to get an idea of what is the student's potential for success. And a lot of times it's very hard to do. It is a little easier when we can look at a year of law school grades. And so, I don't have a number, I don't have anything specifically to tell students other than know that they are looking at your 1L grades, and they're looking for you to have succeeded in those courses, and they are going to look at every part of your application we've covered. But I just know there's a lot of students out there that have that anxiety about, like, how are these decisions even made? Do I even have a shot? And so I just want to add that's really a big part of the evaluation process, is how did you do in law school?
Yeah, and I think that really goes back to the weight of transferring and how it is not just a quick decision to be made. The weight of that decision is also on our committee, because if you were to transfer and if you were not to be able to succeed in that first year and fail out, it really creates a worse situation for our applicants than it would in any other scenario. And so it's really important for our committee to be able to look at, your application and see that effort and that work in that first year, so that we know that we can transfer you in, that you'll fit in with the group here, and that you'll be able to succeed and go on and pass the bar exam. So there's definitely a lot of consideration in your ability to succeed based on that evidence of your first year experience.
Absolutely. So what's next? Let's assume that you have been admitted and have made that decision to transfer. There's a lot of change and work that needs to happen. And typically it's in a much shorter period of time than when you were admitted to deposited to enrolled for your first year of law school. A lot of times you're going to know these decisions in the summer months. And so you might have a month or two to make these changes. And so whenever you're watching this, hopefully it's enough time for you to start thinking about, okay, what would it look like to move if you're transferring schools that are not in the same city? That there are some students that are able to do that. We experience some of that here, but we also experience students that do cross state lines when they transfer. And so consider what it's going to look like for you to move, yourself and your life. Also consider that you're also moving networks, right? Obviously, you're going to want to connect with your faculty, but you're going to want to work hard to connect with not only your class, which will be the 2L class when you come here, but also your co-transfers. And so be looking for ways that schools will connect you, whether it's a GroupMe chat or a Facebook group. Like, make sure you're connected with the incoming other transfer, so that y'all can kind of know each other and help each other through this process. Look for ways to connect to the 2L class at the school you're transferring to, but also look for ways to connect to faculty if they have the ability or offer to meet with you one-on-one before school starts. Take them up on that, because you do have to do some work to kind of reestablish your network. And so think about what other things are changing beyond the name of the school, and the academics. Think about those other changes that's going to happen in your life, and just trying to prepare ahead for them, so that you can manage those steps, those tasks, even with as little stress as possible.
So back to, I think, probably our suggestion and tip that we give at every session for every student is, connect with the schools that you're interested in applying to as much as you can. A great way to do that with us is to follow us on social media. We post a lot of what's going on with our students, as well as any future events that we're going to host that might be beneficial to you. We will generally host a live Zoom session for students in the spring, shortly before our application is going to go live, to answer questions specifically to the transfer process. And so always be on the lookout for that, those types of invitations and events, so that you can, get more information from us and really feel secure about your transfer application process.
So if you have any questions or would like to connect with us, we just wanted to give you our contact information here. If you will email our office, if you do need a one-on-one appointment with either of us, you can email our office, and they're going to send you, they will either send it to you, or we will send you a link, basically with access to our calendar, so you can sign up for that. But you can also call with questions if you just have a simple question or two that you want to get answered on the phone. We have students and staff here that can answer a lot of those questions as well. But we thank you for joining us today. We hope this was helpful for you, and we wish you the best of luck as you prepare to transfer law schools.